Hi, it's Wednesday, May 22nd, 2019, and this is the Pro and the Con Show, and I'm your host, Michael James Ott. Welcome to the show once again. Um, again, brief introduction till I'm sure this show is famous. Perhaps someday it will be, who knows. But anyway, so the intent is to try to encourage discussion and acceptance of each other's opinions, and to do that, try to strip out the bias that's in the coverage out there. And so what I'm doing is I've got 5 different websites that lean from right and more conservative leaning through kind of non-biased to left or liberal leaning websites. And so Breitbart, Fox News, National Public Radio, CNN, and then Huffington Post, all the way on the left. And yeah, so it's we look at how the stories are portrayed, or even what they emphasize by, what are their lead stories, and then what kind of language, what kind of pictures do they show that, and are they trying to incite emotion, or are they just trying to actually report the news, which is just who, what, where, and when. Remember, anything beyond who, what, where, and when is not fact. It's opinion, it's prediction, it's prognostication. A nice big word. But it is not the news. The news is just, this is what happened. It is observations of what happened. So we'll just start with Breitbart here. And interesting that Breitbart leads with this main story, because I've actually been wondering myself, what is the story on this? So here is their lead story. It says, open border mystery, how much wall has been built? Report says just 1.7 miles. The Trump administration claims 100 miles. And what does the Department of Homeland Security say about this? So that's interesting. I haven't actually read the article, but I find it interesting that they're reporting on that. We'll see if we have time. We'll come back and maybe look through that report a little bit. Underneath, as you saw the picture, there's a caption that shows a picture of the wall, or a portion of it, which is nothing more than just kind of a fence, like a single rail fence at this point. It says the total mileage of new border wall constructed on land that did not previously have a barrier remains unknown, and the Department of Homeland Security has kept the number a mystery. And I was actually very curious myself, so I'm hoping that as the days go forward, at some point there'll be somebody that will investigate that and actually give us some data, pictures, some reasoned and appropriate data on, eyewitness reports or whatever, that will tell us how much border wall has been built. Because it's Mr. Trump, one day will say, well, we need billions and billions of dollars to build a wall, and then the next day he will say, hey, it's already done, or it's mostly done, or it's almost done. And he, of course, Mr. Trump being Mr. Trump, he flip-flops back and forth, and, well, shut down the government twice. I'd like to know what is really being built. What does it look like, and where is it being built, and how much? Then Fox News is, it was. Let's see what it says here. Oh, they changed. So Fox News, they change their website all the time. When I get ready for the show, I'll look at their website, and I swear, just minutes after I look at it, it's changed again, and then minutes later it can change again. So it was a lead story, and this story has, except for NPR, it's been on all 5 of these websites. This Michael Avenatti, the attorney for Stormy Daniels, is in trouble. He's apparently, or at least he's accused, fairness, he's accused of various misdeeds, including defrauding Miss Daniels of some money. So to be determined, but that is a pretty consistent storyline across all the different websites. So it's probably true in the fact that he's at least being indicted for these things, and then the Fox News thing. Their lead story is ratcheting up the rhetoric. Pelosi claims Trump may have engaged in impeachable offenses in plain sight. And then there's a little bit later, there's angry Ayatollah, Iran's supreme leader, slamming President Trump and his foreign minister over the nuke deal, and so on. So let's go to National Public Radio. Whoops. So NPR, as they have a tendency to do, they very often avoid the mainstream political story, especially if it's something that hasn't changed very much in this ongoing war. I've mentioned it, and if you follow the news anymore. Anyway, there's this ongoing power struggle over the records from the Trump administration and Mr. Trump himself between Congress and the White House. So what NPR is talking about, their lead story is health news. So surprise medical bills are driving people into debt. Will Congress act to stop them? Now, interestingly enough, just an anecdotal thing, I last year, almost a year ago, solidly 10 months ago, I got an eye exam. It's supposed to be a regular, preventive care, right? So so the insurance companies are encouraging you to be healthy, so you get checked, right? So I got checked for, I went to a physical, so all that stuff, heart and lungs and all that kind of, and blood tests and cholesterol and sugar and all that stuff, right? So I went also and I got my eyes checked. And so they did the glaucoma stuff and whatever other things that can go wrong with your eyes, and they did all those tests. And so I didn't think anything of it. It's supposed to be covered underneath the annual, preventative care thing for the insurance company at my employer. Well, I get a notice on Monday, just a couple of days ago, that that insurance company never paid that bill, and now they're coming to me to pay for it. And so I'm in the middle of this, it's not a huge amount of money, it's a couple $100, but still, it's like, wait a second, this is supposed to be covered, and now the insurance company is telling me that my company's policy from last year, of course, they switched insurance companies, so, it's very painful that 10 months after the fact they're finally coming to me and saying that I have to pay this. Admittedly, a couple $100 is not going to break me, though. And then in the politics, the headline is Trump scorches Democrats as Pelosi broaches the prospect of an impeachable offense. So that's the main headlines there. Then we go to CNN, and their main headline is a second judge has refused to block House subpoenas for Trump bank records. So I think a day or two ago, there were some associated with the Deutsche Bank, and it was tried to be blocked by a judge. I think it was a district circuit. And the judge said, no, these should be appropriate things that the Congress can get hold of. And so I believe they said that within 7 days, you should, provide these records. And I'm sure the Trump administration, Mr. Trump himself, will be appealing that, trying to get those records blocked. Interesting. It's always been interesting to me why he feels so strongly that none of these records should be in the public. But anyway, So that's a second judge now that's refusing to block the subpoenas from the House of Representatives. And the other main story is Mr. Avenatti again charged with stealing and defrauding his former clients. So there's including Miss Stormy Daniels. So that appears to be a real thing. And then, of course, the Huffington Post, being the Huffington Post, they like to maximize the emotion. So lots of exclamation points, and they always use rhetoric that's trying to cause, incite emotion. So Rose Garden tantrum. Okay, so tantrum, and then no talks till probes end, according to Trump. Of course, they've got a nice picture of him with his mouth wide open like he's screaming. However, they're still reporting that Pelosi is saying no need to impeach. So, according to the Huffington Post, Pelosi is still saying impeachment, it does not make sense for us at this time. And the ongoing debate, in case you haven't seen it, is just to talk about for a minute. So the ongoing debate is not really, for most people, it's not really whether there were certain things that Mr. Trump could be impeached for, as in start the process and try to impeach him. The question is, is it enough to warrant it? I mean, and that's a judgment call by somebody, right? And I'm sure that if 300 million Americans were on the phone with their representatives saying we got to impeach this guy, the impeachment process would be going forward, but that's not what's happening. And so the politicians involved, given the fact that the Senate is strongly Republican, and the Republican Party so far has been very supportive of Mr. Trump, kind of amazingly enough, given the history a few years ago during the election. But anyway, the reality is they're holding on to that power, and they see him helping them hold on to power, and that's what they want to do. So they're supporting Mr. Trump and not willing to acknowledge some of these questionable things that perhaps are in his history. And this is again one of the reasons why I try to have this show, is I would encourage them also, so the members of the Senate, members of the House, regardless of what political party they're from, but all of them should be embracing the whole truth, the pro and the con, the good and the bad, the for and against. And what happens is they basically, at least in a public environment, they refuse to acknowledge the other side, even though it's fairly factual, or maybe many times proven to be very factual. No, and it's like denying, a coin like a quarter, has the image of George Washington on one side and an American eagle on the other, and just denying that the side with the eagle even exists, and saying that the quarter, describing the whole quarter as just, well, there's the image of George Washington on the one side. No, it's not true. A U.S. quarter, especially one made years ago, before they started putting the state by state things on the back side instead of the eagle, there was always an image of George Washington on one side and an eagle on the other. And that's how you describe the whole coin. It's true. There are two sides to that coin, and it's very unfortunate for me, for you, for all of us that we're in this environment, and that's why I'm strongly encouraging you to step out there and talk to your family, and talk to your friends, and talk to your neighbors, and talk to your coworkers, and be open to this whole image, the whole truth, both sides of the coin. And then if you will at least acknowledge that both sides of the coin exist, and acknowledge them fairly and appropriately, and then you decide, I'm fine, I don't care, or this is what I think given the totality of the information that I have, but be fully informed. Get fully informed. Who, what, where, and when. And just as I'm doing here, I'm going through multiple sources to make sure that certain stories are true. I'll give you another example of a story that I'm wondering if it was true or not, because I've just not seen any coverage of it since Breitbart first had it on their website, I don't know, roughly a week ago. And there's a story about Hunter Biden, and that's one of the Joe Biden is one of the Democratic presidential candidates, and one of his sons, there was supposedly this report that he had rented a car and ended up leaving various drug paraphernalia and plus a bunch of ID and stuff in the car. And so Breitbart had brought that up, and nobody else. I mean, at least the other 4 websites that I look at, for the purposes of this program, and generally, in the news that I have observed from wherever, New York Times, Washington Post, or whatever, they have not covered that story, at least that I'm aware of. So now I'm wondering, and actually Breitbart, even there was a purported police report that they had gotten a scan of, and they actually had that in there, and I was reading through it. So I don't know. I mean, it's I'm very skeptical of that particular story, even though it looked like Breitbart, they said it was their exclusive story. They said that they had this information. They published, a PDF of the police report, but yet there's not a coverage on other, news media, if you will, or other sites for giving us the news or providing some information. So why? It makes me very suspicious. And so anyway, that kind of covers the news today. Other than, let's go back. We talked about the border wall. Let me just open up this this article here in Breitbart and see. So again, it's saying that the Department of Homeland Security is keeping the amount of border wall constructed a mystery. The Customs and Border Protection Agency has touted construction of new border wall systems, saying that 38 miles as of March 21st had been built. Their spokesman said the newly constructed wall system provides new capability by replacing ineffective or dilapidated structures. And it's said that the 38 miles of border wall system is part of a 115-mile wall construction project using money from fiscal years 2017-2018. But they have refused for months to reveal the mileage of the border wall has been constructed and in the areas that where it was not previously built. Every administration since the early 2000s has replaced border barriers in the U.S.-Mexico border. The Obama administration, for example, constructed an 18-foot high border fence that replaced an existing barrier in New Mexico, and on and on. Okay, so this week a lawyer for the House of Representatives told an Oakland, California judge that less than 2 miles of the border wall has been built using the $1.6 billion that Congress allocated to the project last year. Following the report, White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders claimed that the figure was incorrect and that more than 100 miles of border wall have been built. Okay, so there you go. I applaud them for asking the question and at least so far providing seemingly fairly unbiased information here. So here's the thing, so various people are saying different things, and they differ not by a small amount but by a large amount. So why is that? And this is why we need a free and functioning free press, that reporters from various sources, from various news organizations should continue to chase this, keep asking the questions until finally the image, the reality of what's going on, actually comes into focus. And just like you and I, as citizens of this country, shouldn't just accept the very first story that we hear. We should, be cognizant that, a story or information isn't true until it gets kind of confirmed. So we should be looking at confirming things ourselves, just as these reporters should be trying to confirm how much wall was built and where, and what does it look like, and how much money was spent. So, I mean, on the one side, if they really have spent almost $1.6 billion on a couple miles of fence, wow. I mean, that seems like a really poor spending decision. So that doesn't seem like it's right. It doesn't feel like it's right. So what is really going on? So I applaud them for continuing to look into this. This guy, yesterday I talked about a reporter named, his last name was Nolte. This guy's named Binder, that's running this story, at least at the moment. All right, well, we're out of time for today, so thanks for joining us. Again, hoping that this stimulates some openness in your heart and in your minds to the pro and the con, the good and the bad, the for and against, so that you'll go forward fully informed and make your decisions based on a full knowledge of the topics. All right. That's it for today. Bye for now.